sales tax, a national sales tax. Could you explain how this would work?
Very much, and I think it's very important. For me, it's the second most important issue I can address because it's so, so broadly misunderstood in the United States. The government, the most important task of a government is to raise the revenue so that it can operate. Now, when a government raises revenue unfairly, what happens, the people intuitively know this, and they know that the money the government raises will not be spent fairly on the people. And so what people do is they have a disdain for the government. They don't trust the government, and they're opposed to the taxes because they know they're not raised fairly. Now, there's only really two forms of taxation. One is the income tax and the sales tax. With the income tax, they're both progressive. The income tax, the more you earn, the more you pay. With the sales tax, the more you spend, the more you pay. Now, what happened to the income tax from the First World War on, when it was first instituted, is that it was corrupted by the wealthy people. They have gamed the system so that they don't pay their fair share under our system of taxation. Stop and think. Today, 70% of Americans pay more tax, or pay most of their taxes, through the Social Security tax and the health tax rather than the balance of the income tax system, which means that the most regressive part of the income tax system, which has been corrupted into great regressiveness, is where most of the Americans, ordinary Americans, are stuck. And now you don't hear any change for reform. Oh, they're going to tinker with it, make it easier for the IRS to come at you. No. And it's always getting worse. The code is 4 feet high. I was on the Finance Committee for 8 years, and I got to tell you that nobody understands the totality of our tax system. In fact, the cost to the private sector of meeting the obligations of our present tax structure is $270 billion a year. That's half of what we spent in Iraq at this point in time. Now, and that's every year. Think if we could now get a system that was fair. And what's most important to make it fair? Transparency. You need to know what I'm paying, and I need to know what you're paying, and then we know it's fair. And the only way you can do that is with a sales tax. You can't do it with the income tax. It's already been corrupted. Now, a sales tax is progressive. If you buy a car for $5,000, you're going to pay, let's say 20% is the tax. You're going to pay 20%. If you buy a $100,000 Mercedes, it's going to be 20% of that. So you can see the progression. Now, we can make it even more progressive because we know that the problem with respect to taxation is to deal with the essentials of life. Well, right now, the essentials of life are taxed, through your income. And so what happens is what we can do is say, what is the cost to the average American for food, lodging, clothing, medicine, and transportation? We take that number, multiply that number by the sales tax, take the resulting number, divide it by 12, and send a check to every single American who registers for this annually. Send them a check, and they now have a cash flow that could be considerable, $400 or $500 a month. And of course, the poor would get this, which of course they don't get anything now. So now you have a situation where you have transparency, you have the essentials of life covered, you go get your paycheck, and there's no income tax deductions. So you get your full paycheck. I'm talking just at the federal level now. You get your full paycheck, plus you get a cash flow from the prebates that you would be paying on the essentials that then operates to the benefit of the average American, and this is all carried by a retail sales tax. Now what happens as a result of this new form of taxation, our present income tax has contributed to the Rust Belt across this country and causes us to lose jobs after jobs. Little wonder that manufacturing went from 60% of the GDP down to 10%. Well, what happens with this form of taxation, we become more competitive in the world because we're not carrying the income tax on the products that we produce. In addition to that, since we now will have a large economy that has no taxation, no income taxation, investments will come into the country, and that will give us the economic wherewithal to rebuild our infrastructure, to make education number one, to pay for our health care. That's what can happen if we can settle on developing a fair system of taxation and do away with the corrupting form of taxation we have today. There are many other benefits, but this is the crux of changing the nature of our economy. The crux of, it'll make us a savings. Right now, today, the United States of America spends more than they earn. Now, how long do you think we can keep that up? And that's what's going on. We're indebted to the rest of the world. That's what's going on. We cannot do that. Japan, China, these people save. Americans have to save. We do more consumption than anybody else in the world. And we've got to change. Otherwise, we are going to, at some point, could be in a month, it could be in 10 years, we are going to be in extreme economic difficulty, and then it'll be too late to address the problem. We need to do it in a voluntary fashion now, and that's what the fair tax is all about.
Okay, well, one of the arguments that I've heard against the sales tax proposal is the wealthy, say a person makes $2 million a year, they spend, even on their expensive houses and cars and yachts and whatever, they spend $500,000 of that in the year, and they're taxed on that through sales. Whereas now they're taxed on the $2 million of earning. Could you?
I think that's a poor analysis. But let me give you an example. They buy a house, $1.5 million house, like Obama. He bought $1,600,000 house. All the interest on that mortgage is deductible. So you go out and you buy a house of $50,000 and you can deduct your interest. Oh yeah. So begin to look at the entire picture. Here, I bet you that somebody within sound of my voice has been to a baseball game or a football game. Well, they go sit in the bleachers and they pay for their ticket, whether it's $40 or $50 or $100 with after-tax money. Look up top and you see those skyboxes. That's all tax deductible. So the wealthy are in the skybox and you're down there paying your ticket after you've paid your taxes. Please, I got to tell you, do some very careful analysis and you'll find that the wealthy will pay more taxes with the retail sales taxes than they ever think of doing now. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people who are of modest income think that the wealthy are going to get away with it. They're getting away with it now, and the change needs to take place now. But all I can do is provide the best logic I can. I've got 8 years on the Finance Committee. I've got major professors who buy into, economics professors who buy into what I'm doing. And so if people could do the analysis and listen to, here, you hear this often, is let's tax the corporations. Well, that's a canard. Tax the corporations? That's a hidden sales tax. Because if you raise the taxes on corporations, they have to take that tax, add it to the product they're producing it, and then pass it on to the consumer. And who is that? The average American. But you hear all the time, oh, let's just sock it to the corporations like we're giving you a break. It's a joke. You're getting screwed and you're not even aware of it. And that's the sadness of our existing tax structure. Please, please, think it out, rationalize it out, and find out why that if my thing is so advantageous to the wealthy, why aren't they contributing to my campaign?